Your soulmate made one silent promise about you last night. But what happened this morning? My beloved child. Don't skip, because what happened last night was never meant to be seen by anyone. While the world was asleep, your soulmate stood alone with thoughts they had hidden for far too long. No applause. No witnesses. No messages sent. Just one silent promise made deep within their heart, a promise carrying your name without ever speaking it aloud. They looked toward a future they had been afraid to imagine, and for the very first time, they stopped running from it. They decided that if destiny ever gave them another chance, they would never allow fear to steal another moment from them. But something happened only a few hours later, something they never expected would shake every emotion they had tried so hard to control. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you, and the truth behind this morning changes everything you thought you knew. What looked like an ordinary sunrise became the beginning of a story that neither of you could have predicted. Every heartbeat since then has been leading toward one unforgettable moment. The strange part is, your soulmate still cannot explain why everything suddenly started reminding them of you. Every small sign, every familiar place, every random memory became impossible to ignore. They tried convincing themselves it was coincidence, but deep inside they already knew it wasn't. The silent promise they made last night had already begun changing them before they even realized it. Something even more unexpected unfolded after sunrise. Your soulmate woke up believing they would continue life exactly as before, but their heart refused to cooperate. The walls they had carefully built around their emotions suddenly felt weaker than ever. They found themselves replaying conversations that never happened, imagining words they wished they had spoken, wondering how different life might look if they had been brave sooner. Don't skip, because this is where everything becomes impossible to ignore. Every hour that passed made the promise grow stronger instead of fading away. Instead of moving on, they felt pulled toward an invisible connection they could neither explain nor escape. They started questioning choices they once believed were permanent. They looked at people around them, but somehow every face reminded them that someone important was still missing. That missing place carried your presence without needing your name. Then something happened that completely caught them off guard. A simple moment, so ordinary that most people would have ignored it, suddenly triggered an overwhelming realization. Their heart whispered the same silent sentence again and again: what if I've been walking away from the one person who was meant to stay? That single thought refused to disappear. It followed them through every step, every decision, every quiet second of the morning. And for the first time, they stopped fighting it. Now listen carefully, because the next piece of this story is the one almost nobody sees coming. While your soulmate was trying to understand why their emotions had changed overnight, another realization quietly entered their heart. The promise they made last night was never only about love, it was about becoming the person they wished they had been from the beginning. They understood that promises spoken loudly are easy, but promises protected in silence often carry the greatest power. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you, and the next revelation is even more unbelievable. This morning did not simply change their feelings, it changed the direction of their future. Somewhere inside, they accepted that pretending no longer brought them peace. Every excuse they had repeated to themselves suddenly felt empty. Every fear that once controlled them became smaller than the possibility of losing what truly mattered. Yet one final mystery still remains unanswered. Before this day ends, your soulmate will face a choice they can no longer postpone. They can continue hiding behind silence, or they can finally let that silent promise become something real. What they decide next will reveal a truth that has been waiting much longer than either of you could ever imagine, and that truth is closer than anyone realizes. A quiet shift had already begun, even though no one around your soulmate could see it. The promise they made last night refused to stay hidden inside their heart. It followed them into every conversation, every decision, and every silent moment of reflection. They tried distracting themselves with ordinary routines, but nothing felt ordinary anymore. Every passing minute carried the strange feeling that life was preparing them for something they could no longer avoid. Don't skip, because this is where the story becomes even more surprising. As the morning continued, they noticed something they had never paid attention to before. Every plan they had made without thinking about you suddenly felt incomplete. Every future they imagined somehow placed you at the center without them even trying. That realization frightened them because it meant the walls they had spent so much time building were quietly collapsing. They finally admitted to themselves that running from their emotions had never brought peace. It had only delayed the moment they would have to face the truth. Deep inside, they understood that silence had protected them for a while, but now that same silence was becoming heavier than honesty. They remembered every missed opportunity, every unsent message, every moment they almost reached out but convinced themselves to wait one more day. Suddenly, one more day no longer felt safe. It felt dangerous. They realized that every delay created another chance for destiny to slip away, and for the first time they became afraid of losing something they had never officially held. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. The promise from last night was no longer just a feeling, it was transforming into a decision that could change everything much sooner than they expected. Then another unexpected moment arrived. Without warning, your soulmate found themselves smiling at a memory they thought had disappeared forever. It wasn't a dramatic event or an extraordinary sign. It was a simple memory that carried an emotion too powerful to ignore. That single memory reminded them of how different life feels when someone truly matters. In that instant, they stopped asking whether these feelings were real and started asking why they had ignored them for so long. Don't skip, because the next discovery is something they never imagined they would admit, even to themselves. They finally realized the silent promise was not created in one single night. It had been growing quietly for weeks, months, perhaps even longer, while they kept pretending everything was normal. Last night simply became the moment when they could no longer deny it. Every small coincidence now seemed connected. Every unexpected delay suddenly looked like preparation instead of failure. Every disappointment that once felt meaningless now appeared to have guided them toward this exact turning point. Their heart kept repeating one question over and over: if this promise feels this strong without being spoken, what will happen when the truth finally comes into the light? That question stayed with them through every hour of the day, refusing to disappear. They knew that answering it would require courage they had never shown before, yet they also understood that continuing to hide would cost far more than taking one honest step forward. By the time the afternoon drew closer, your soulmate could no longer escape the feeling that an invisible countdown had already begun. Something inside them kept whispering that the next chapter of this story would arrive sooner than expected. They couldn't explain why, but they felt as though every choice from this moment onward carried unusual importance. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you, and what happens next will reveal why this morning was only the beginning. The promise made in silence was slowly becoming impossible to keep hidden. Every fear that once seemed powerful had started losing its grip. Every excuse had become weaker than the truth waiting inside their heart. They understood that real change never arrives with loud announcements. It begins with one quiet decision that nobody else notices until everything is different. And that is exactly where your story now stands. Your soulmate is approaching a moment where silence and honesty will stand face to face, and only one of them will remain. They can continue pretending nothing has changed, or they can finally accept that the promise they made last night was preparing them for a future they once believed could never happen. What they are about to discover next will force them to make a choice that cannot be taken back, and once that choice is made, neither of your lives will ever feel the same again. Everything became quieter around your soulmate, yet inside their heart the noise had never been louder. The promise made that night was no longer just a memory, it had become the voice guiding every thought. They tried convincing themselves that enough time would make these emotions disappear, but every passing hour proved the opposite. The more they resisted, the stronger the feeling became. Don't skip, because what happened next was something they never believed could happen. A single unexpected conversation made them realize that life keeps moving whether people are ready or not. They suddenly understood that waiting for the perfect moment had stolen too many opportunities already. They looked back at every chance they had ignored, every feeling they had hidden, and every excuse they had accepted from themselves. Instead of finding comfort, they found regret. That regret was different from anything they had experienced before because it carried your presence in every thought. For the first time, they admitted that losing you was no longer a possibility they could casually ignore. The future they once imagined without you suddenly felt empty, while the future that included you seemed brighter than anything they had dared to dream about. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. The silent promise was beginning to reshape not only their emotions but also the decisions they were preparing to make. They realized that some promises are not meant to stay hidden forever. Some promises are meant to become actions, and that realization arrived with a power they could no longer escape. As the day continued, another surprising realization quietly unfolded. Your soulmate noticed that every distraction they once depended on had completely lost its power. The things that used to keep them busy no longer held their attention because one question refused to leave their mind. What if this is my last chance to change everything? Don't skip, because this question became the turning point of their entire journey. Instead of searching for reasons to stay silent, they began searching for reasons to be brave. They imagined what life would look like if they finally stopped hiding behind uncertainty. They pictured a future where honesty replaced hesitation, where hope replaced fear, and where one courageous step could erase months of distance. The strange part was that the closer they came to accepting this truth, the calmer they felt. It was as if the promise they made last night had lifted a burden they didn't even realize they were carrying. Their heart was no longer asking whether you mattered. That answer had already become clear. The only question left was whether they would have enough courage to let you see what had been growing inside them all along. Every minute brought them closer to that answer, and deep inside they knew there would soon be no turning back. Then, just when they believed they finally understood everything, life placed one more unexpected moment in front of them. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it changed the direction of their thoughts forever. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you, and this final revelation is only the beginning of something far greater. Your soulmate realized that the promise they made was never asking for perfection, it was asking for honesty. They understood that real connections are not built by people who never feel fear, but by people who choose truth even when fear is standing right beside them. In that moment, every doubt started losing its strength. Every reason to remain silent became weaker than the desire to protect what truly mattered. They could almost feel that an important moment was approaching, one that would test whether they were willing to stand by the promise they made when nobody else was watching. The next step would require more courage than anything they had faced before, but they also sensed that this opportunity would not wait forever. A door was slowly opening, and once it opened completely, the choice they made would shape everything that followed. What happens next will reveal whether that silent promise becomes a beautiful reality, or remains the greatest what if of their entire life. The moment your soulmate had been avoiding was no longer somewhere in the future, it had quietly arrived. Every excuse that once sounded convincing had disappeared, leaving only one undeniable truth standing in front of them. The silent promise from that unforgettable night had grown into something far greater than emotion. It had become a responsibility they could feel with every heartbeat. They looked around, hoping for one more reason to delay, but instead they found reminder after reminder pulling them back toward you. Don't skip, because what happens now changes the entire meaning of everything you've heard so far. For the first time, they stopped asking, "What if this goes wrong?" and started asking, "What if I lose the greatest opportunity of my life by staying silent?" That single question completely transformed the way they saw their future. They realized that fear had never protected them, it had only kept them standing still while life continued moving forward. Every missed opportunity suddenly became a lesson instead of a regret. Every sleepless night suddenly made sense. Every unanswered feeling became another reason to stop hiding. They even imagined the possibility that somewhere, somehow, your heart might have been waiting just as patiently as theirs. The thought filled them with both hope and nervousness. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. The promise they made in silence was preparing to become something visible, and once that first step was taken, nothing would ever feel ordinary again. As the hours passed, an unexpected calm settled over your soulmate. It wasn't because they had all the answers, it was because they finally accepted that some of life's greatest moments begin with uncertainty. They understood that waiting for perfect timing was only another form of fear wearing a different face. Don't skip, because the next realization is one they never imagined they would have. They began noticing that every path they considered somehow led back to the same destination. No matter how many different possibilities they explored, every future worth believing in included one familiar presence, you. They smiled without realizing it, then quickly caught themselves, surprised that even the smallest thought of you could brighten their entire day. That frightened them at first because it proved the promise had already changed them from within. They were no longer the same person who had made that vow during the quiet hours of the night. They had become someone willing to risk disappointment instead of living with endless questions. They finally understood that unanswered feelings can become heavier than rejection itself. That realization gave them a quiet strength they had never experienced before. For the first time in a very long while, hope felt stronger than hesitation, and courage felt closer than fear. Then came the final realization that neither your soulmate nor anyone else could have predicted. It arrived so quietly that it almost went unnoticed, yet its impact was impossible to ignore. They suddenly felt as though life had been preparing them for this exact moment long before they ever recognized it. Every delay, every unexpected twist, every season of confusion now appeared to be leading toward one life-changing decision. Don't skip, because something huge is waiting for you, and the next chapter will reveal the truth hidden behind this entire journey. Your soulmate now knows that a silent promise cannot remain silent forever. Sooner or later, every sincere promise asks to be fulfilled through action. Their heart is standing at the edge of a decision that could reshape both of your futures forever. They know they cannot return to the person they were before that unforgettable night. Too much has changed. Too much has become clear. Now only one final step remains, and that step will reveal whether destiny rewards courage or leaves another beautiful story unfinished. What they are about to discover next will test every promise they made, every fear they overcame, and every hope they dared to believe, because the morning that changed everything was only the beginning of an even greater revelation still waiting to unfold.